Life used to feel simpler. Back when I was juggling writing gigs and Liz was just starting her career, we were newlyweds full of hope, working to build a stable future. Our days were hectic, but we still dreamed of the family we'd raise. I was finding my footing as a freelancer, and Liz hadn't yet climbed the corporate ladder, but we were content in each other's company. Then the kids came, Derek and Lila, and our priorities shifted. I took on more at home while Liz's career soared. What I thought was a temporary setup turned permanent. And while I managed the house, Liz thrived at work. Over time, I began to resent it. I had hoped it was just a phase, but years later, we were still stuck in the same routine. Sitting by the window, I realized I was about to do something out of character. Liz, now 33, ran an office with confidence, managing a housewares company. Though she preferred Elizabeth, I always called her Liz. Her career success didn't bother me, especially since the company owner was a family friend. I earned my living writing articles and essays. Not much, but it was steady, though Liz's salary had long since outpaced mine. When we had the kids, Derek is now 11 and Lila is 13, Liz worked right up until the end of her pregnancies and went back to work quickly. We had a part-time nanny until the kids started school, but I eventually took over most of the cooking and housework. It didn't bother me at first. I was home and things needed to be done. But over time, it became expected, and Liz never offered to share the load. A few years ago, I even suggested hiring help, but nothing changed. We just fell into this routine, and I went along with it. Now, I'm starting to wonder if it's time for a change. I loved my kids and had their respect, though they always seemed uncomfortable when I showed them affection. We weren't a touchy-feely family. Liz made sure of that. I blamed her for the lack of warmth, and our physical relationship was limited to one predictable night a week. It hit me 2 years ago. What a dull life I was living. Something had to change. Those were my thoughts from the past, but tonight, as I waited for Liz to come home, I realized nothing had changed. I prepared dinner, and Liz soon arrived, telling me her mom was coming over. "Arthur, my mom's coming for dinner. Dad's at the lodge," she said. I set another plate, already sensing a fight brewing. "I know you don't like my mom, but could you be civil?" she asked. I nodded. She kept going. "Your body language says too much. She has feelings, you know." I nodded again, while the kids stayed quiet. Liz began complaining about work, dealing with customers when her boss wasn't around. "Kids, see what I have to put up with? If Calder sells me the business, things will change," she rambled. As Liz kept talking, I decided not to wait for her mom. "I'm eating now. The roast will get cold." I started serving the food just as her mom, Iris, walked in, visibly annoyed. I met her eyes and did something I'd never done before. I dropped my gaze to her cleavage and wiggled my eyebrows. She looked shocked. I smiled and then patted her on the back when she started coughing, my hand lingering on her neck. She shuddered. "Arthur, stop that. What's gotten into you?" she snapped. "Nothing," I replied. Liz told me to be more friendly. "I don't like it. You must be crazy," she said. I laughed. Everyone's a little crazy sometimes. I let it go. Neither Liz nor the kids saw anything unusual, just me trying to help. Liz got up to get her mom some water, and when she turned away, I glanced again at Iris's chest. Iris crossed her arms, and when I smiled, she quickly left the house. Liz called after her, but Iris kept shaking her head and walked out. Liz stormed back, accusing me of driving her mother away. "Dad didn't do anything," Derek defended me. "Grandma's been acting weird since she got here. She said Dad was crazy, but I think she's the one who's off." "Don't call your grandmother crazy," Liz snapped. "Let's just eat. I'll take her dinner later." After we finished, I said, "Liz, can you and Lila handle cleanup tonight? I've got an interview at Casey's bar in half an hour. Not sure when I'll be back." I turned to Lila, joking. "Mind if I get a hug from my favorite daughter?" "Dad, I'm your only daughter," she laughed, hugging me. I offered Derek a handshake, and he took it with a smile. In the kitchen, Liz was loading the dishwasher. "I'll be home later. How about moving date night up to tonight?" I asked with a grin. "No way. You know the routine." "Mom thinks you're crazy, and I do too. Just go. I don't care if you come back at all." I shrugged, grabbed my things, and walked past Casey's bar to a waiting taxi. It took me out to the city's edge where several motels lined the strip. In the taxi, I was Arthur Franklin, husband to Liz, father to Derek and Lila. When I stepped out, I became Tommy Franklin, close friend of Beatrice Collins. 2 years ago, I was sent to interview Beatrice, a new widow whose husband died in a motorcycle crash. She was 7 months pregnant, stranded far from home with no family, nearly broke. "Mr. Franklin, you look so much like my husband, it's eerie," she had said through tears. I stayed with her for 3 hours, listening to her story. She was 7 years younger than me and completely lost. Before leaving, I told her not to give up hope. "I'll write your story and find a charity to help you." I wrote the articles and donations poured in. Beatrice found a home with an elderly woman named Vera, who had recently lost her own daughter. As Beatrice approached her due date, I told her to let me know when the baby was coming. I felt good about helping her. A few months passed, and I visited Beatrice occasionally. When she went into labor, I left Liz a note saying I had an interview out of town. I made it to the hospital in time to be with Beatrice as the baby was born. I even held her son, Alex, before he was taken to the nursery. Over the years, I continued to visit Beatrice, but never more than once a month. I wasn't in love with her, but I enjoyed her company, and I adored the baby. After 2 years, Vera left to visit her sister, and Beatrice asked me if I could stay overnight. "Tommy, I need to talk about my future," Beatrice said. "I'm almost 25, and life's slipping by. You should think about your own future, too. I know you're unhappy at home." "Okay," I replied. "I can get away for a few days. We'll figure something out." Beatrice then looked at me and asked, "Will you kiss me before you go? I've waited months for this." I hesitated. "You're okay kissing a married man?" "I am," she said softly. "Come here." Later that night, I told Liz, "I'm going to be out of town for a few days." "Fine by me," Liz replied casually. "Dad will take the kids somewhere. He really cares for them. I'll be busy too." There were no questions from her about when I'd be home, where I was going, or whether it was work-related. "I'll be gone at least 3 days. I'll be back when you get off work Friday," I told her. "Why not stay out until Saturday? What about Friday night?" "That's our night together," Liz asked. "We'll skip it. It's been 3 weeks since we've been together anyway." "Oh, Arthur, stop it. We have 2 kids, and I don't want to risk getting pregnant. I don't care if we ever have sex again," she responded sharply. "Damn it, Liz," I said, feeling the frustration rise. "I'm 32. I'm not going the rest of my life without closeness." "Then find it somewhere else. You'll get it from me when I feel like it, and that's it," she snapped. I stared at her, shocked she'd even suggest changing our usual night. Was that guilt on her face? I didn't like having this conversation in front of the kids. "Fine, Saturday night it is," I finally said. "I'll be home in the afternoon and maybe take you to dinner. The kids can come too." "No, Dad's taking the kids. You can take me out, and we'll discuss things later," she said, already dismissing the conversation. I left to meet Beatrice Tuesday afternoon, arriving later than planned. She greeted me warmly, looking completely different from Liz, more cheerful and full of life. As we sat down for dinner, I asked her, "Does Vera know I'm staying?" "Yes, she does," Beatrice smiled, though I could sense her guilt. "She told me to give you whatever you want." The evening went as expected. Beatrice was more passionate than I had imagined, making me forget about Liz. But in the morning, I felt a wave of guilt. At breakfast, Beatrice asked, "Are you sorry?" "In some ways, yes," I admitted. "I've never cheated on Liz before, and it's bothering me more than I thought. But I felt real love with you." "Tommy, I'm sorry for causing your guilt," she said softly. "Can we just go back to being friends?" "I don't think so," I replied, "but I need some time to figure things out." "You say the sweetest things," she said with a faint smile. "I'm not sorry we did this. I'll let you decide what happens next." From then on, she let me spend time with the baby, and we talked about our lives. Beatrice shared more about her late husband, a carpenter she had followed from job to job. She still had his old van, though it was rarely driven. We took a walk to the store, and I told her more about my life with Liz. Beatrice wasn't shy in her response. "If we end up in a relationship, you'll have to step up as a partner. No demands, but no holding back either." "I'm working on it. I'm here, aren't I said with a smile. She paused before continuing. "You know, you'll need to settle things with Liz. I'm sure you're thinking about divorce." "I've thought about it," I admitted, "but I have no grounds." "Are you sure?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "No woman treats you the way she does without something going on." "I never considered that she might cheat," I said thoughtfully. "But maybe you're right." "Talk to her," she suggested. "Maybe it can be fixed." "And what about us?" I asked, searching her eyes. "Doesn't this mean anything?" "It means a lot," she replied softly, "but it's not enough to break up your marriage." A month later, everything changed. After I returned from my 3-day trip, I hired a private investigator. 3 days later, I had photos of Liz with another man. I couldn't see his face, but the evidence was clear. I guess I wouldn't be missing our Friday night date after all. Liz was getting served divorce papers that Friday at work. When Liz came home that evening, she accused me of having a midlife crisis, but didn't seem too upset about being served divorce papers. I didn't mention the investigator's report, saving it for potential issues in the divorce. Surprisingly, Liz agreed to my terms without a fight. I had 2 kids I loved, but I was leaving, knowing they'd be cared for by Liz's father and my parents. Visitation would be allowed, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. I had saved a good amount of money and had some promising fiction stories on my laptop. An editor told me my work would sell, so I planned to publish under the name Tom Franklin, dropping Arthur entirely. Liz and I divorced, and I focused on my kids, Lila and Derek. They handled the split well, likely because they saw how Liz treated me. I used my savings to buy Vera's house, where Beatrice was already living. People assumed we were married, but we weren't. Beatrice's son Alex was born after her husband's end of life, and anyone looking at us might think I was his father. As for my own kids, Liz had custody, and I gave up my share of the house to avoid high child support. Liz sold the house and moved in with her parents. Lila, now 15, soon clashed with her grandmother and mother. Tensions flared when Lila's friend discovered her own father was Liz's lover, leading Liz to blame Lila. Lila began spending more time with my parents and eventually moved into my childhood room. Derek, on the other hand, was content bouncing between his 2 sets of grandparents, focusing on skateboarding tricks during his rides between the houses. Both kids were happy, as my dad and Liz's father were lifelong friends, giving Derek plenty of activities to enjoy. After the divorce, I didn't see my kids often, only every other weekend. But when Liz started having trouble with Lila, I began visiting more frequently. Soon I was seeing the kids twice a week. Eventually, I suggested Lila move in with my parents, and she asked if Derek could join her. I met with Liz, who surprisingly agreed to let both kids move in with me. She even offered to pay support, not realizing my financial situation had improved thanks to my writing and Beatrice's growing online business. She was selling Chinese artifacts through an importer, and her business was doing well. Our new living arrangement worked. I wrote in one room, Beatrice handled her sales in another, and we took care of Alex together. We weren't a traditional couple, but friends with benefits. We didn't share a bed unless we felt like it, then went back to our own spaces, satisfied with the arrangement for now. I hadn't told my family about living with a woman, but that had to change when I decided Lila and Derek would live with me. The Wednesday before school ended, I visited my parents and told them, as well as the kids, about my new house. Walter arrived while I was explaining, so he found out too. "This Sunday I'm having a cookout so you can see where Lila and Derek will live," I said. "Walter, should I invite Iris?" "Nah, she wouldn't care. No need to mention it," Walter chuckled. That was fine with me. Mom asked, "What can I bring?" "Maybe a pie or cake," I suggested. "Okay, we'll come early to help set up." "Not necessary," I said. "Everything's ready. I use the patio all the time." I then added, "Mom, can you start calling me Tommy? I've dropped the name Arthur." Dad chimed in, "About time. I've always hated that name." "Why did you name me Arthur then?" I asked. "Ask your mother," Dad replied. Mom sighed, explaining they had a great Uncle Arthur who had helped them out when they were struggling and made them promise to name their next son after him. "He's dead now, so the name can be too," she said. We also talked about my brother Oscar, who was in the military. Mom mentioned that Liz had been corresponding with him, which surprised me. It turned out he had been visiting town frequently, staying with Iris and Walter, and even spending time with Liz. Lila quietly confirmed it, saying, "I knew he was here recently. I think it's awful what Mom and Uncle Oscar are doing to you, but I wasn't supposed to say anything." I left feeling conflicted. When I got home, Beatrice could tell something was off. I told her, "It's nothing really. I just found out Liz was cheating on me with my brother for longer than I thought. I've invited my family over for a cookout on Sunday. Derek and Lila will be staying here for good." Later, I remembered the photos from the private investigator. Looking at them closely, I realized it was Oscar in the photos with Liz, identified by an old scar on his back. That explained why the divorce went smoothly. They wanted to keep their affair quiet. Both Liz's parents and mine likely knew after the divorce. I wasn't sure how to handle this revelation. I didn't want to alienate my parents or let my kids hate their mother. But knowing my brother had betrayed me left me angry and humiliated. Liz had been unfaithful to him as well, from what Lila shared about her dating other men. That night, Beatrice came to my room, offering to talk. I told her about everything, how Lila and Derek were moving in, and how I found out about Liz and my brother. I feel humiliated, and I don't know how I'll act when I see him again. Beatrice reassured me. Don't do anything drastic. It would hurt your family. Focus on moving forward. She was right. Though it was difficult, I knew I had to focus on my kids and leave the past behind. Beatrice then cuddled closer, lightening the mood. You know what happens when you suggest cuddling, don't you? I asked with a smile. I do. That was the plan, she replied playfully. Beatrice had a calming effect on me, especially when my mind was racing. Her warmth helped me forget my troubles that night. The next morning, I was excited about my family meeting her. After Alex was born, she worked hard to get her figure back, and now she looked great, with styled hair and a graceful way about her. As I sat with my coffee, Beatrice caught me staring. Tommy, you're looking right through me. What's on your mind? She asked, amused. Just thinking about you, I said with a grin. If I asked you something important, would you answer honestly? Of course, she said, intrigued. We've been living together for 2 years, and I love Alex like I love Derek and Lila. They'll be moving in soon, and I think you'll get along with them. So I was wondering, should we get married? Beatrice laughed. That's a pretty lukewarm proposal. Can't you do better? I pulled out a ring. Beatrice, will you marry me? Her eyes softened. Tommy, you've made me so happy. When were you thinking? Soon. With the kids moving in, it's best to be married before Liz changes her mind. I bought the ring a month ago, but now it feels more urgent. Beatrice teared up. I would have married you any time. I've loved you since before Alex was born. Great! Let's get the license next week. I'll ask Derek to be my best man. Beatrice smiled. And if Lila likes me, I'll ask her to be my maid of honor. It'll make them feel welcome. That Sunday, I prepared the patio for the family cookout. I was nervous since I hadn't told them about Beatrice and Alex. Around noon, Mom arrived and immediately asked, Who's the child? That's Alex Collins. He and his mom live here with me. You'll meet Beatrice inside, I said. Mom wasn't thrilled, but went inside. Derek and Lila greeted me warmly, and soon they were playing with Alex in the yard. My dad showed up next, and I greeted him. I thought you lived alone? He asked. No, I've been living with Beatrice. She came with the house when I bought it, I explained. Mom and Beatrice then joined us. Beatrice introduced herself to Dad, explaining how I had helped her after her husband died. Dad was surprised to learn about my successful writing career, saying he had read about me recently. As we got ready to eat, Mom mentioned someone else was coming. Yes, Walter Hale, your father-in-law, she said, using my old name. I smiled, correcting her. It's Tommy now, remember? Mom chuckled and agreed, signaling that she was still a bit miffed I'd kept Beatrice a secret, but also showing she was warming to her. As I went to grab drinks, I overheard Beatrice telling my parents, This is the first time I've heard Tommy brag about his writing. Hearing Beatrice's words brought me a sense of satisfaction I hadn't expected. Derek and I brought out the cooler with drinks, and Alex, curious as ever, grabbed a bottle of ale. Beatrice let him try it, knowing he wouldn't like it. Sure enough, after one taste, Alex spit it out and ran to me crying. I calmed him down and sent him off to get the dustpan to clean up. Just then, Walter and Iris arrived. I greeted them, and Iris seemed more reserved than usual. I introduced Beatrice and Alex to them, and Iris looked relieved when Beatrice clarified that Alex wasn't my son and that I had dropped the name Arthur. Iris even said, Thank God, my daughter hated that name, and I think she started to hate him too. Beatrice smiled at me, and I knew things were off to a good start. Then I made my announcement. I've asked Beatrice to marry me, and I want Derek to be my best man, Beatrice added, asking Lila to be her maid of honor, which made Lila excited. We talked about the wedding, planned for 2 weeks away, and everyone seemed supportive. It was the first real conversation I'd had with Iris in years, and surprisingly, she seemed more pleasant. Maybe she saw that Derek and Lila were happy, which lightened her attitude. As I grilled hamburgers, the kids played with Alex, who eventually tired out. Lila offered to take him upstairs to bed, which gave me a moment to reflect on how content my children seemed. I hadn't seen them this happy in a long time. Later, Beatrice shared details about her business, explaining how she started with just $100 and had grown it into a profitable venture. Everyone was impressed by her success. With a grin, she teased, Tommy's slow sometimes. I didn't think he'd ever make a move on me. I defended myself, explaining that Beatrice had just lost her husband when we met, and I didn't want to rush her. When I finally did make a move, I felt guilty. I didn't want to feel like I was replacing one woman with another. Beatrice smiled warmly and added, Tommy may be slow, but he's thorough. I knew he would always be there for me, and I knew he was considering how Derek and Lila would feel. As I glanced at her, I saw tears forming in her eyes. Tommy, she said, I understand you more as time goes on. That's why I said yes when he asked me to marry him, Beatrice said with a smile, sealing the moment with affection and gratitude from everyone around. For a brief moment, I reflected on how different Beatrice's love felt compared to Liz's. The way Beatrice looked at me was genuine, from the heart. Blushing, I shifted my focus to where I did my writing, feeling proud and wanting to impress Lila, Derek, and perhaps Iris. I'd always felt like Iris looked down on me, though she had been surprisingly kind today. When I visited the kids after the divorce, Iris usually avoided me, but today she seemed more open, even friendly. It was time for the grandparents to leave, and after a few tears and hugs, they drove off. My kids stood in the driveway watching them go, then turned back to come inside. Just then, Alex woke up, fussy from his nap. When he saw Lila and Derek, his mood quickly changed, realizing they were here to stay. Lila took charge, offering to help Alex with lunch, and Derek, not wanting to help with potty duty, stuck with Beatrice to learn about her business. Later, we all went upstairs to settle Lila and Derek into their rooms. As we made the beds, Lila asked, Don't you sleep with Beatrice? I explained that I hadn't, wanting to wait until we were married. Lila responded bluntly, You should. Mom and Uncle Oscar don't hesitate, and she brings other men home too. I was shocked, and Lila admitted that Liz had threatened to disown them if they told me. I processed this new information quietly, knowing things had shifted. Liz wasn't my wife anymore, and I had my kids living with me. I still had to deal with my brother Oscar, but that was a battle for another day. After lunch, Beatrice showed everyone how her online business worked, impressing them with her success. She explained how she had started small and built it up with a little help from me. She joked about how slow I'd been to make a move, but I defended myself, saying I'd wanted to respect her grieving process after her husband's end of life. Eventually, I opened my heart to her, and everything fell into place. Wednesday, the women went dress shopping, so I took Derek to get a suit for the wedding. When we returned, a large Harley-Davidson was parked in the driveway. A man introduced himself as Jimmy Stein, Beatrice's stepbrother. He explained he had been in trouble and recently got out, now trying to rebuild his life. Jimmy hadn't seen Beatrice in a while and wanted to check in, making sure she was with a good man. I invited him to stick around until she returned, and we chatted about his past, including how he used to ride with Beatrice and her late husband Luke. Jimmy admitted he was struggling to find work but hoped to get back into the bike business. I suggested he attend our wedding, though he hesitated, saying he didn't have anything decent to wear. I offered to help him get some new clothes, telling him to keep his leather vest. After all, that was who he was. I knew Beatrice would be pleased to see her brother again. When Jimmy finally stood up, I realized how big he really was, 6'5" and towering over me. Wow, Beatrice lucked out, I thought. We headed back into town and returned before the women arrived. Jimmy was eager to find a job, so I gave him a note from my friend and sent him off. He left his new clothes in my old room. Derek wanted to ride on the bike with him, but I said no. It was too soon. When the women returned, Beatrice was excited about her wedding dress. Derek told Lila about Jimmy, and I overheard him say, Maybe we can ride motorcycles once we know him better. After everyone left, I told Beatrice that Jimmy would be staying for the wedding. She was thrilled and jumped into my arms. She asked where he was, and I explained he was out looking for work but would be back soon. Later, as Alex fell asleep in my arms, we heard Jimmy's Harley pull into the driveway. Derek, worried, asked if he didn't get the job. I reassured him and asked Beatrice to invite Jimmy in, knowing he must be hungry. I watched from the window as Beatrice and Jimmy reunited, exchanging a brief kiss on the cheek. Beatrice wiped away happy tears, and they came inside together. Jimmy shook my hand and thanked me for the job lead, saying Greg had hired him after a long interview. He added that my note was what secured the job, and he was determined to prove I was right about him. We offered him dinner, but Jimmy declined the beer, explaining he didn't drink anymore. Curious as ever, Derek asked what prison was like. I scolded him, but Jimmy said it was fine to answer. Jimmy explained that his size protected him in prison, but the real punishment was losing his freedom. He described the daily routine, being confined in a small space, and the demeaning treatment from guards. He got through it by not fighting the system and staying focused on getting out. Lila, who had been quietly listening, finally asked, Why did you go to prison?" Jimmy nodded and explained, "I'm not a bad person, but all prisoners say that. Luke, Beatrice's first husband, was my best friend, and we were part of a gang. Beatrice was different from the other women, good and kind. One night, 4 drunk guys cornered her and Luke, trying to hurt her. I arrived in the middle of the fight, and Luke was losing. I intervened and seriously injured 2 of them. Unfortunately, one of them was related to the local district attorney, and I got 5 years in prison. I paid my debt, but I've lost rights, like voting and owning a firearm," Jimmy continued, expressing happiness about Beatrice getting married again, though he didn't know about Alex until that day. He was glad to meet me and my family, and was determined to be part of their lives. After a pause, he added with a chuckle, "I guess I talk a lot." "Does that answer your question, Derek?" Derek, humbled, nodded. "Yes, it does." Beatrice smiled, saying, "Jimmy, you sound more educated than I remember." Jimmy explained how a former teacher in the prison library helped him learn and got him a motorcycle repair manual, which gave him the confidence to apply for the bike shop job. He reflected on the challenges of reintegrating into society, admitting that many former inmates face closed doors, which can lead them back into crime. I encouraged him, "With your attitude, I doubt that'll happen to you." Jimmy smiled and said, "Thanks. People like you can help prevent that." He shifted the conversation to me, asking about my life, and I shared my story while Beatrice filled in details. Jimmy listened carefully, even when Lila mentioned the troubles that led to my divorce, though it made him a bit uncomfortable. Later, as we wandered outside, Jimmy noticed the old barn on the property and asked about it. I told him it was unused. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Would you mind if I rented it?" Surprised, I asked, "The barn?" "Yeah, I could fix it up, live in the loft, and maybe turn the stable into a repair shop." "I don't want to hang around your house all the time," Jimmy explained. I looked at the barn and agreed, "Go ahead. I'll give you the money to get started, and maybe Derek will learn something useful." Jimmy grinned. "Deal." That night, after the kids were in bed, Beatrice and I lay talking. "You treat my brother just as well as you treat me," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you." "I'm proud of Jimmy too," I replied. "He's a good man, always has been." Beatrice whispered, "I owe him for saving me and Luke back then. You're helping me repay that debt." "I love you," I said, holding her close. "No more than I love you," she whispered back. A week from Saturday, I'd be married again. I was more excited about this marriage than my last, knowing it would bring true happiness. Later, I asked Jimmy if he wanted to work Monday, but reminded him to take Beatrice for a ride in the evening when it was cool. Lila and Derek would get their turns on the bike too. Wednesday, Lila even asked Jimmy to take her to surprise her grandparents. Liz called that evening, furious about Lila riding a motorcycle. "Who is that biker?" she demanded. "That's Jimmy Stein, my soon-to-be brother-in-law. I'm getting married this Saturday," I explained. "Why wasn't I told about this?" she snapped. "It's none of your business," I said, trying to stay calm. Lila and Derek are in the wedding, and Beatrice is the bride. Liz continued with accusations, claiming Beatrice was after a sugar daddy. I shut her down, explaining I'd known Beatrice for 4 years, and we'd only been together after the divorce. She tried to dig into Jimmy's role, and I warned her to stay away from him. Liz shot back that I couldn't control her life, and I reminded her we were divorced. The conversation went nowhere, ending abruptly after I pointed out that even though the kids knew about her lifestyle, they still loved her, and I would make sure they continued to care for her. After the call, Beatrice said, "You were harsh on her, don't you think?" "Maybe," I admitted. "But I'm done letting her blame me for everything. The kids came through this okay, and I'm grateful to their grandparents for that." "You mean Iris and Walter?" "Yes, I had issues with Iris, but since I walked out on Liz, she's been more friendly." I concluded, "I have custody now, and if I mess up with the kids, it's on me." "You won't," Beatrice reassured me. "You love them, and they love you. I'll be here to help." Jimmy didn't come inside when he and Lila returned, but I needed to talk to her about her conversation with her mother. "Lila, your mom called earlier. She said you didn't answer some of her questions. You need to show more respect toward her. I think you were showing off because of the bike ride." "But, Dad," Lila protested, "she was trying to control me in front of Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Oscar. You have custody, so she had no right." "She's still your mother," I said. "Just because I have custody doesn't mean you can disrespect her. She loves you, and I won't let you forget that." "Should I call her?" Lila asked. "Do you think you should?" I responded. Lila nodded and went to make the call. When she returned, she said, "I apologized for showing off and told her how happy we are with Beatrice. She asked if we were happy living here, and I told her we are. I think she still loves you." "I know she does. Thanks for calling her, Lila." On Saturday, Jimmy asked, "Are you sure you want me at the wedding?" "Of course. You're family now. The kids already call you uncle, and we hope you'll stay with us for good." I noticed tears in his eyes when he turned away. Later that day, Mom, Dad, Iris, and Walter arrived early. Jimmy showed Dad and Walter the barn and how he planned to fix it up. Then we headed to the little church for the wedding. It took only 20 minutes for Beatrice and me to get married, and I couldn't help but smile at how quick it was. Afterward, I handed over the marriage license for the minister to sign. After lunch, Walter and Iris gifted us a one-night stay at a hotel, and we planned a longer honeymoon for August in the mountains, where we could rent ATVs and explore trails with the kids. Jimmy suggested we rent a couple of all-terrain vehicles, and soon, even I was considering getting riding gear, though I wasn't much of an outdoorsman. Jimmy spent most of his time fixing up the barn, and Derek enjoyed helping him. Jimmy explained everything to Derek as he worked, which I appreciated. Meanwhile, Derek also helped Beatrice with her import business, earning a little commission, while Lila spent more time with me, asking questions about my reporting work. When our vacation came, Lila and Derek were excited about the four-wheelers Jimmy had arranged. Since I wasn't comfortable riding one, Jimmy rented me a more stable Bobcat UDV to drive with Alex. We arrived at the cabin, and Jimmy quickly taught the kids how to ride safely. After giving them instructions, Derek asked, "How long before supper?" "About 45 minutes, I replied. "Take it easy until you get used to the ride." They sped off, and we soon heard the engines revving up. Beatrice smiled and said, "They'll be fine. They're good kids." That evening, we ended the day by roasting marshmallows around the fire. The next day, everyone did their own thing. Jimmy and the kids took the four-wheelers out again. Beatrice followed them with Alex and the Bobcat, and I went on a solo hike. When I returned around 1 o'clock, I saw a car parked in front of the cabin. Inside, Liz and my brother Oscar were there. Liz greeted me, surprised. "Mom said you were on vacation. I thought I'd come see the kids and meet your wife. Where are they?" "They're out on the four-wheelers," I replied, still standing at the door. Oscar, with a sarcastic tone, said, "Aren't you going to say hello? I'm your brother." "You're no brother of mine," I said coldly. "Liz, take him out of here. If you want to see the kids, come back alone." Oscar taunted, "Are you mad because I slept with your wife? I'm not leaving until I see your new one and my niece and nephew." My patience snapped. "You both need to leave now," I said. Oscar swung at me, and I blocked the second punch, landing a few of my own. Jimmy eventually pulled me off him. "Tommy, stop. You'll eliminate him." I turned to see Beatrice, the kids, and my parents, who had arrived and witnessed the fight. Liz helped Oscar up, and I told her, "Get him out of here, and don't bring him back." "Can I at least say goodbye to Lila and Derek?" Liz asked. "Make it quick," I replied, exhausted. Beatrice helped me inside, and I told her I needed a shower. Later, while soaking in the tub, my mom barged in. "I had to check on you. Oscar's in worse shape, but he'll be fine. You can't hurt a drunk." "Are they gone?" I asked. "Yes, Liz just left," she said before adding with a laugh. "I hope I see less of you at dinner than I did just now." A little later, Iris came in, apologizing for Liz bringing Oscar. "I wish they'd both just leave us all alone." "Iris, it's not your fault," I said. "They're adults, but they only think of themselves." She admitted, "I didn't like you much before, but I'm starting to change my mind." "Thanks, Iris," I said. "Now, can I finish my bath?" She laughed and left the room, and I thought about how much she'd softened. As I relaxed, I realized how much grandparents often make up for the mistakes of their children by doting on their grandchildren. At dinner, it was quiet. My mom seemed the most upset by Oscar's behavior, but I felt good about standing up to him for the first time. I hoped it was the end of the drama, but a month later, Oscar returned. When he knocked on the door, he said, "Tommy, I'm not looking for a fight. You beat me fair and square. I want to apologize and maybe be friends again." I cautiously let him in. "What do you want, Oscar?" he admitted. "I've messed up. You've got a good life, family, kids. I've got nothing. Dad won't speak to me, and Mom cries every time she sees me." "You brought this on yourself," I said. "I know," he sighed. I offered him coffee, and as we sat down, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Oscar, you humiliated me. Why? How did this start?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It started years ago when you were away on assignment. I was home on leave and I flirted with Liz. She didn't stop me. In fact, she encouraged it. I thought if you couldn't keep her satisfied, she was fair game. My fists clenched under the table, but I stayed quiet. Oscar continued. Every time I was home, I slept with Liz. At first, I felt guilty, but that faded. I'm sorry, Tommy, truly. I'm also sorry for Mom. She won't let me stay at home anymore, and it hurts. Are you going to marry Liz? I asked, feeling a strange sense of relief. God, no, he said quickly. She's been cheating on me with a bunch of other men. Iris has barred me from her house, and Liz kicked me out before I could leave. Honestly, I don't miss her. I know the feeling, I admitted, leaning back. It's mostly relief. Tommy, I don't want anything to do with you either, but I hope you can make it up to Mom someday. I'm trying. I've got plans. You'll get your wish. I'm leaving soon. Can I say goodbye to Lila and Derek tonight? He asked. I thought about it and finally agreed. You can come by. They used to look up to you when you were in the army. I did too, but you've broken Mom's heart. Oscar nodded. Thanks, Tommy. I'm trying to get my life together. Find an unattached woman and make her happy. You might find happiness too, I said more gently. Later that evening, when Oscar came by, I let him see the kids. After spending a few minutes with them, he came back to the kitchen. You've got great kids, Tommy. I envy you. I regret causing so much of the mess. I'm leaving tonight, and I don't know if I'll be back. Thanks for letting me apologize and see them. As he left, we shook hands. Despite everything, I knew I'd miss him and hoped he might return as a better man. Liz's life didn't improve. The store where she worked as a manager changed ownership after the owner's end of life, and she was fired by his daughter. She found work managing a 11, but lost that job too. Eventually, she moved back in with Iris and Walter. We didn't see her much, but I made sure the kids visited. Often, when they went to see her, she wasn't home, so they spent time with Iris and Walter instead. Liz never contributed financially, but that didn't matter. Beatrice and I were doing well. I was publishing 1 or 2 books a year, and Derek was earning his own money helping Beatrice. Lila graduated near the top of her class and went on to study journalism at the State University. Beatrice and I were proud of both kids. Alex was a joy, always making everyone laugh. The same year Lila left for university, Beatrice gave birth to twin girls, Bethany and Selena, who quickly became Beth and Sal. Jimmy also found happiness. He met a wonderful woman, and they had a son. He moved out of the barn and bought a cottage near his work, and we couldn't have been happier for him. Thanksgiving was at my house during Lila's 3rd year of university. Mom made an announcement. I've been in touch with Oscar. It's been almost 5 years since we've seen him, and he wants to visit during Christmas. I already told him he's welcome. Where has he been living? I asked. I'm not sure, but he said he's only 3 hours away. He offered to stay in a motel, but I told him that was silly. His old room is still available. It's strange he hasn't contacted us before now, I said. I told him I thought he might have died. He said no, but stayed away until he could come back in a way that would make us proud. He plans to ask Tommy for forgiveness. I recalled Oscar apologizing to me before he left town, but I remained skeptical about his return. That thought was interrupted on Saturday when Iris called. Tommy, Liz is in the hospital. She'll recover, but she tried to take her life. You're saying she attempted self-destruction? I asked. Yes, I found her unconscious after swallowing most of the pills in the medicine cabinet. They've got her in intensive care for now, but we'll move her to a regular room this afternoon. Can you bring the kids to see her? I'll make sure they visit. Lila heads back to school tomorrow, so it'll be mostly on Derek. I'll call you later. I broke the news to the kids. They weren't too surprised by her actions. Lila admitted, It's depressing to visit her. She only complains about how life's treated her, but it's mostly her own doing. You should both give her more attention, I advised. It might make a difference. Derek agreed. I'll visit more now that I'm out of high school. Later, Lila and Derek went to the hospital and returned after dark. Derek updated me. Mom's severely depressed. They've put her on antidepressants, but she's being discharged tomorrow because she has no insurance. Graham and I said we'd cover the costs. What's the plan? I asked. She agreed to go to a mental institution for evaluation. Part of her problem is she's broke, and her unemployment benefits have run out. I offered to help find a facility, and Lila reassured me, You're not responsible for her, Dad. I know, but I can still help. The next day, Derek took Liz home while Lila went back to school. Derek called me later, saying, Mom regrets what she did. The doctor said she needs to take her medicine regularly. Watch her closely, son. She's still unbalanced, and we need to get her properly evaluated. I'll work on it tomorrow. I found a state program offering treatment for people in Liz's situation, and luckily they had a bed available. Derek and Iris took her to the facility the next day. At 42, Liz had no job, no home, and no income. This was a chance to get her the help she needed. 3 weeks later, Derek received Liz's evaluation report. It turned out her issues were medical and treatable. The doctor explained it was a hormonal imbalance, possibly dating back years, worsened by unemployment and early menopause. These factors had contributed to her depression and self-destruction attempt. Liz came home just before Christmas, with Lila and Derek picking her up. She returned to stay with Iris and Walter, trying to rebuild her life. I hadn't seen her in almost a year, and I didn't expect to over the holidays since our family had made it a habit to avoid each other after the incident with Oscar 5 years ago. One day, while Beatrice, Lila, Iris, and my mom were out shopping, Liz unexpectedly showed up. "Hello, may I come in?" she asked. I welcomed her inside, had Alex take her coat, and we went to the kitchen for coffee. Liz looked thinner and worn, but she seemed more composed. I brought out a coffee cake and asked her to cut it for the kids, introducing her as Lila and Derek's other mommy. After the kids ate, they returned to the TV, leaving us alone. "It's been a while, Liz. How are you?" I asked. "I'm better, but I feel foolish for how I behaved. There was a time I didn't want to live, but that's behind me now. I wanted to thank you for helping me get into that facility. Derek told me it was all because of you. You needed help, and Derek would have done it himself if he could. I just stepped in to support him." Liz sighed. "I've thought a lot about my life. I know I made mistakes, and I don't have any excuses. But I'm trying to move forward and find a job." "What kind of work are you looking for?" I asked. "Something in a store. I was a good manager for Calder, but I screwed up at that convenience store. The doctor said it might have happened anyway because of my condition." She paused before continuing. "I also want to apologize for how I treated you and everyone else over the years." "Apology accepted. No point dwelling on the past. Just follow the doctor's advice and move on." Liz smiled softly. "Thank you. Derek said something similar when he picked me up. It's good to hear it from both of you." As we talked, Derek returned to pick her up. Liz thanked me again for raising 2 wonderful kids. We shared coffee and cake. And as they were leaving, Alex commented, "Derek's mommy is a nice lady, isn't she, Daddy?" "Yes, she is," I replied quietly. 4 days before Christmas, the house was filled with excitement, especially from the younger kids. I wondered when Oscar would show up, and the next day, just before noon, he arrived with a woman, a young girl, and a baby. "Tommy, I have a family now. Am I welcome?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, surprised to see his new family. Oscar explained that he'd been working at a private school, teaching and mentoring kids. He had met his wife, Betty, a war widow there, and they had married 2 years ago. He wanted to come home because he thought our mom could finally be proud of him. "That's exactly what I wanted for you," I told him. Oscar hesitated before asking, "Do you think I'll run into Liz? I'd like to apologize to her, but don't want to upset Betty." "Liz was here yesterday. She's been dealing with some health issues, but is staying with Iris and Walter. If you do see her, I'd suggest not bringing up the past unless she does." Oscar agreed, and we joined everyone in the living room. Beatrice held their baby, and my girls were already sitting beside Betty. Oscar seemed at peace, and I could tell he had changed. Before leaving, Beatrice invited them to stay for lunch, and we all sat down together, preparing to share a meal as a newly extended family. The girl gave me a shy smile and followed us into the kitchen. I fried more French fries, and Oscar called Mom to let her know he'd be there after lunch. "I guess I'm Mom's Christmas present this year," Oscar said. "It's about time, right?" "Yeah, she'll be even happier when she finds out you have a family," I replied. Oscar looked sad for a moment. "It's tough knowing it took 50 years to make her happy. I'll do my best to keep it that way from now on." As Oscar and his family were getting ready to leave, Lila walked in with Liz, making things a little awkward, but Beatrice handled it smoothly. "Lila, you remember your Uncle Oscar, and of course, Liz, you do too. Oscar's here with his family. This is his wife, Betty, and their daughter, Ginger, along with their baby, Josh," Beatrice said, introducing everyone. Betty approached Liz. "I've seen pictures of you with Lila and Derek. Oscar always said Lila would be as beautiful as you, and he was right. I hope we'll see you tomorrow at his parents' house." Liz hesitated. "I'm not sure. I've been sick, but if I feel up to it, I'll come." Betty smiled. I hope so. Oscar says he's starting his second life at 40, thanks to Tommy nudging him in the right direction. After they left, I reflected on how I had told Oscar years ago not to come back until he made our mom proud. Maybe that was the nudge he needed after all. Beatrice laughed. I think he got the message after you knock him up. Liz chimed in. Yeah, I had to listen to him complain about how mean you were. I decided to give Mom a call. Oscar was here, and Liz showed up too. I think it'd be good if you invited Iris, Walter, and Liz for Christmas. Oscar won't cause any trouble. Mom was hesitant. Why all the extra people? Liz might stir up drama. She won't. I'll make sure of it. This could be the best Christmas ever. Are you going soft on Liz? Maybe. She's been sick, and now that she's getting help, she could use a little kindness. Mom agreed to call Lila and invite Liz. Later, Lila told me, Grammy invited Mom for Christmas. I think it'll be nice. Christmas was wonderful, with no drama, just happiness. Liz, a bit out of place, sat next to me, quietly observing. She turned to me and said, This could have been my family if I hadn't been so selfish. You're the one holding everyone together. No, it's Lila and Derek who hold us together. They love you just as much as they love me. Derek will help you find something to feel good about again. I hope so. I've made a mess of my life, but I'll do whatever work I can find. Don't worry. Derek will help you find something meaningful. Liz smiled and admitted she was grateful that Iris hadn't shut her out despite everything. A month later, Derek came to me concerned about Liz's future. Dad, Mom still hasn't found work. I need to help her before she falls back into depression. Do you have money to invest? I asked. Yeah, I've saved nearly $75,000 for my business. Why? Buy a store and let her manage it like she did with Calder's. Derek thought it was a great idea. He found a convenience store that had been on the market for a while. After some research and appraisals, Derek was ready to make an offer, knowing this was the right move to help his mother rebuild her life. Derek got the appraisals and we worked out a fair offer. He'd take over the mortgage, pay for the inventory at wholesale minus 10%, and asked the owner to hold half of the remaining balance, paid monthly at a lower interest rate than the mortgage. This left $117,000 for Derek to finance. I'll cover that, I said, but you have to agree to take evening classes in marketing at community college. Get an associate's degree in case you want to pursue something else later. How will I pay you back? I won't be able to work full-time after a year, I asked. Sell your mother a share of the store or pay me back after the mortgage is done, my father replied. I don't need the money now. It's a gentleman's agreement. No paperwork. So Mom doesn't need to know? I asked, seeking reassurance. Exactly, he confirmed. And Beatrice will be fine with it. Just tell your mom you have an investor. Get her excited about the store. I think she'll love it, I said, feeling more at ease. A few years later, Lila, now almost 30 and working for a major publisher, called me. Dad, I have 2 weeks off in July. Can you get the whole family together? I might have an announcement, she said. Getting married? I asked, curious. Engaged. You'll love him. He's a lot like you. Let's all stay in the bunkhouse together, she suggested. I'm not a kid, Lila, I said, chuckling. Just for one night, Dad, everyone talks about how much they love you. You're the most important person in the family, she insisted warmly. Touched by her words, I agreed to organize the gathering. First, I called Derek, who now ran Franklin's Grocery after deciding against college. Dad, this is great. I'll announce my engagement too. It's a secret for now. Can you invite Mom? It would mean a lot to her, he said. I called Liz and invited her. She asked, Can I bring a special friend? Of course, I replied. Bring him and his kids. They'll fit right in. Her voice caught with emotion. Thank you, Tommy. I'm so happy. I made more calls, inviting Oscar and his family, my parents, and Liz's parents. Everyone was excited and I felt content. Reflecting on my life, I realized how far I'd come from those early years of dissatisfaction. Now, everything felt right.